So I think that we can start. Thank you everyone who joined and who is joining now. My name is Elvina and I will be your moderator today. Today we have our talk about solid for React components, but by Artem Koziar. We are in Kiev and we are happy that you joined us from different locations. Before we start, I want to share some information about our company and why we are sharing this expertise today. So Grid Dynamics is a leading provider of technology consulting, engineering, and data science services for Fortune 500 corporations from financial, technological, and retail sectors. We are operating since 2006. Our headquarters is in San Francisco Bay Area, and now we have more than 18 countries in our geography and more than 4,000 engineers in our team. So as you can see, our offices are in the United States, Eastern, Central Europe, and also Asia. Here are our clients from different technology sectors. So you can see some really important logos for our world. And here you can scan the QR code if you are interested in some career opportunities around the globe. You can check the job openings in each city where we have offices. And also you can join our LinkedIn if you are interested in our next events, so you can see event when it is posted. Okay, here I think that I can stop and I want to add only some details about questions. So during the talk, you can ask the questions in our Zoom chat, and also you can interact with our speaker because he'll ask you some questions too. And or after, you can unmute yourself and ask your question by the microphone, but please, during the talk, be muted so you'll not interrupt our speaker. Also, please do not add any additional apps to this meeting because I saw that one of you did it. Please do not, because it is not required. And yeah, as I said, it will be posted, the recording will be posted. So if you need to leave earlier, it is okay. Okay, I'll stop my sharing and Artem, I think that you can start.
Hi, all. Yeah, I am share my screen. One moment. Great. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, thank you for joining, guys. Today, we will try to speak about Solid in our front-end world a little bit, and I would say this is a quite advanced topic. And before start, I'd like to ask you what do you have for this meeting? Yeah, because I think this is interesting, very interesting topic for experienced engineer, but to understand and to be valuable for you, this presentation, you should know in some level React, TypeScript, and something about Solid. Can maybe interact somehow in our chat? Do you know this full stack of knowledge that required for this topic? For example, can you write classes to channel to this if you know React, TypeScript, and Solid in general? What is this? Great, great. This is very good because this is important. And then let's start. I think all of you know what Solid is, or maybe just go through the plan. So agenda for this meeting. Small intro, then we'll go through all these interesting points of this acronym, and then you can ask questions. Of course, you can ask questions during the presentation if question is if I can answer quickly to your question, because to be honest, this should be workshop, and it's much better to do all this stuff with me, especially offline event, but repeating to me and doing the same, because it's hard to understand maybe just listening, just see the presentation. But I'll try to explain my thoughts, my ideas. But anyway, after this presentation, if you really want to understand this topic, please check resources that I'll share with you a little bit later, and try to do this by yourself. It's really important to understand this information. Okay, then let's go. So I am engineer in grid dynamics, Artem Koziar. Feel free to ask any questions after this presentation in my LinkedIn or Facebook, whatever you can find me. And to if you want, you can read and check all code that I have here in repository. So if you have mobile phone, you can scan this QR code. If you are working on the laptop, please go to this repository, and you can get this code. So what do we have here? We have here the main branch that I'm going to start from this one. And then we will go through all these points. And for each of these steps, I have pull request. So we are engineers, and we can read easily what changes do we have in each steps here in pull requests. So we will go by this flow. Let's go. So let's go to the first our step, single responsibility. And before we start, it's better to show what we're going to build in this presentation. I have this pretty UI for you. So we're going to build very common solution in our front-end world. We want to render some cards in our application. For example, here we have movie card with title, some poster, description, and size of this poster. Very easy UI, loading data, and render this card. So let's check, first of all, what do we have in our main branch. This is pure React application in TypeScript. I running in terminal. Here we have index with application. Inside application, we have two our components card. This component has include whole logic for the card. Here we have state of card. Here we have inside use effect loading of the data to this card. Here you can see simple mock promises by timeout with resolving this interface. Interface of iCard is ID, title, subtitle, image, and size. So we have here loading of the data, then setting this data to this card. While card loading, we are showing loading state, then we will render this card. Is it clear what this application do? Loading and then card.
Yep.
Great. So let's then go to the single responsibility principle. By the way, I think all of you know these solid principles here, but we will try to apply these principles to front end and to build our component. So it's very important to understand, because usually we know that solids works for OOP, yeah, and with the functional programming, it's hard to understand how this could match together, but we will try to do it inside this presentation. So, single responsibility. What it means? That means that we need to have only one reason to change some component. Yeah, it means that our component should do something one and responsible for something one and act something one. And we need to we need clear understand what this component do. And let's check, for example, this our component card. Here we have a lot of logics. Yeah, here we have state where we save this data. We have loading of this data. Also, for example, we could have here some mapping, I don't know, some manipulation with raw data to our interface data. Then we have logic to show loading component and the main component. Again, we have UI for each of these components. Here we have UI for loading state. Here we have UI for card, and also we have inside one card all data in one, yeah, and title and image and subtitle and size. So the first principle said that we need to have only one reason to change. Yeah, we need something single responsible for this component. So what I want to do in the first iteration, I want to move out all logic in separate hook. I want to move build this component in structure way. Title move to title component, description to description component, and image to image component. So to do so, I just switch to my branch solid one SRP branch to increase speed of our presentation. But if you have some questions about these specific code changes, please feel free to ask in the chat, and I'll try to explain quickly or at the end of the presentation. Again, so what do we have in the first step? Single responsibility. We will move all logic in separate hook. Use card. Here you can see logic of the storing, of the loading data, and returns just data, and that's it. So we can easily see what the outcome of this hook. We don't need to know anything about state, about our API, about some loading process. We just need to know that potentially we can have in this variable iCard interface or null, and that's it. And based on that, we can show here loading component or card component with a separate small components of this card. Here we have header component, which is very simple component to render only just header. Image component to render image of this card, and description component with subtitle and size. And that's it. So now it's much easier to read, to understand what this component do, and which data this component use, and how it looks like. Much easier and better to support. Questions?
Can you show use card hook file another time?
Yeah, sure. The
Thank
same
you.
code, that we have previously, just cut from the component and put in the separate hook and return it.
Okay, so you use just simple use state for setting an object of card to the state and then call it from another file.
Yep.
Okay.
Artem, I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you come back on the main file?
Card. Yep.
Yeah. As I saw, you device header, image, and description, right? And you provide the card there, but you provide also, yeah, if you open the image, for example, component, here you provide props as a, I
Card.
don't know,
Yep.
card title, card image, and also description. That's a good way to provide another props here, because you provide actually all props here, but not specific props like.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, and we will improve all these components step by step. Absolutely. So
Okay.
the first our iteration is just build simple components and hooks with clear logic. That's it. This is what single responsibility principle about. And I recommend you, when you're trying to separate your logic in some separate entries, it's to check these entries, I don't know, components, services, classes, etc. By different layers. For example, architecture layer, where this logic should be, for example, you can even increase this hook to move out this logic of loading data, I don't know, in some another hook, if you have some specific logic of the loading. Then business layer, technical layer, and even responsibility, if you want to improve readability of your code. Sorry guys, I don't want to read long questions. I'll do it later if you don't mind. So, but now let's go to the next principle. So we move our hooks and components, move out from the main component. Then open close principles. This principle says that our entries should be opened for extension and closed for modification. So I think we as front-end developers, we are using this principle every day and very often, but we need to understand how it's to do better in our specific cases where we're working with components. So I try to think like in a way that our code should be immutable, the same as data. So if we want to build reusable and helpful component for future, for other developers and for ourselves in future, we need to build component really really helpful, and this principle helps us to build this reusable component. So what we can do in this case? In this case, our card is very strict component. So we could use card just using component without any modifications of this. But let's imagine that we want to add some specific header, image, description, maybe some loading state. It's impossible to do in this component. Yeah. And let's imagine that we want to use another server to get this data. It's also impossible to use this component. So what I want to do is move out all these external entries to the props. So I want to add hook to props of the card, loading component, header component, image component, and description component as props of iCard component, and make this component extendable. So let's go to the first branch called solid 2 OCP. Voila. And here we have these changes. We have interface props for this card. And we have here hook, header component with props iCard, image component with the same props, description component, and loading component. So we want to support all previous version of the component. So I added all these props are optional. So all previous components should work the same way without any changes. Yeah, here you can see card also without any additional props, but we could use it. We could use now these props, and I put our own components as default parameters of these props. Use card hook has use card default parameters, header component of header, and again, etc., etc. Loading component, header component, image component, and description component. Just using props to with all external entries, we can make our components reusable in the future. And I'll show you in next steps how we can do it. Is it clear? Let's go next.
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, add components to parameters. Next principle, the scope substitution principle. This principle says that objects of superclasses shall be replaced with object of its subclasses. So in our world, it means that we could usually reuse our components or wrap our components in the same type of element. So what does it mean? I want to show you this example when we have not only card data, type of data, but let's imagine we want to render also some paints, some arts. And I want to add to our application the second type of data, arts. And I'll go to change our component to support both type of data. So let's check what do we have in this principle. ISP principle, and probably I need to show step by step what do we have here. So first of all, I added various interfaces. Yeah, I added the second interface called iArt. This is the same card that we had, but with outro. And I added separate hook, but first of all, separate API for that. We have now API get card returns poster and card, and get art, which is return iArt object with this outer field. And we have two hooks use card for this that we had previously, and now we have use art. Very similar hook, but we are using iArt interface here, and return card as well. And now the most important and interesting part is our component. How we can change our component to support the both variants. It's better to explain step by step. And I'll show you what's happening here. So first of all, our props. Our props, as you can see now, is generic, and we extending from iCard, and all our components now also should be generic. So if we open description component, you can see that props of this component also extend from iCard and using this generic. So now we know that this is something like iCard, but maybe not exactly. But we should work with iCard as superclass of any data that could be here. The same header component, image component, etc., etc. Only loading component hasn't any props. So we have props generic. Then we need to use this component, and it's easy. It's easy because all our components generic, but the most maybe unclear and complex part here is this hook, because inside component we're using this hook. It's hard to return something genericable, how would say, but we should do it. And to use hook that could return some generic for us, we could build, I would say, I don't know, a factory. We can create function that could get this hook as a required parameter and return concrete value with concrete data of this card. And then we can use this card as generic in our application. So to do so, we have here function with parameter hook. As you can see here, we have function get card with hook use card and get card with hook iCard, which returns this concrete component, build component. Yeah, I would say component card and component art card. The specific components based on hook which we are using here. Probably this is the most harder to understand changes in this presentation. So maybe some questions, or you want to clarify something in this point, please feel free to ask.
I just want to ask something.
Yep.
So it is about the single responsibility. Are we sure right now for this get card is doing just one thing? I mean, does this has a single responsibility? Because as I see, it is something like usable for different reasons, like iArt and iCard. So it looks like it doesn't have a single responsibility. What do you think about this?
Absolutely good point. And I would say we increased this single responsibility principles of this card at the last part of this presentation, but we can, as I said, we can increase and think about these principles in our routine. And it's impossible to apply in all your components, in all your code, these principles, I think, in one time. And this is pure examples, step by step, yeah, because when I showed this principle in single responsibility, I showed how we can do it with this component. And now, for example, I showed you another principle, and it works different. And I don't like this, for example of this component. If I would build this component for production, I choose another way. But I'll show you this way in the last step of this presentation. But now, to show you how we can apply generic and how we can apply these subclasses and superclasses to support in our component, we need to have this type of component, which is built dynamically based on the hook that we can provide for this component.
Yes, I understand. Yeah, it's clearly a good example for the creating dynamic components. Yeah, but yeah, maybe not good for the single responsibility. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. For example, here we have some hook loading and card template, and this is three different things that it's better to separate. Let's do it in next iteration. Okay.
One raised hand. Yeah.
Yes. Hi, Artem. We welcome you from Moldova.
Okay.
I have a
Yeah.
question. Maybe it's stupid, but what version of React you are using right now?
Let me check. 18.
Okay, maybe something changed, but I don't remember that we can use custom hooks inside the functions. How did you do that?
What do you mean we can't use?
Okay, when you use, for example, useState inside the function, it says that you can't use useState inside the function, a hook inside the function.
But this is component. No, this function is create component. So when we call this function get
Mhm.
card, okay, maybe it's better to show we when we call get card function, we called this logic and returns this component. So the component itself doesn't render, doesn't run during this inside this code. We run this component logic only when we use it. So here in our app.js file. So here, when we call card or iCard, then React run render function of this component called this part of the code.
So I understood you
Yeah.
indicated that what this function returns, and it understood that it's a component, yes?
It's function that returns component. For example, cons ABC that this some function which return some component.
Oh, okay. It returns a
Yes.
callback, you mean?
Yeah, it's return function.
Okay.
It's function returns function. This function is component.
Oh, now I understand. Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. And as example of the usage of this components, you can see in RTS, in apt.tsx, a card itself, pure component. And here we have customized iCard component with custom description component. Yeah, we have in our iCard additional data artist, and we want to show it. So we put our description component as parameter. All other components are the same as the card component. And in iCard component, iCard description component, here we have card as iArt, because we know that these components works only with iArt data. And here we can use our pure description component with this card. Again, we can use here card because card is extends from the because iCard extends from card. And here we have this additional parameter. And now you can see that we could render using the same component, but with some additional stuff, two different type of data, card and art. Great. Let's go to the next then principle, if it's clear. Next principle, interface aggregation principle. So this is what question was about. We need depends only on interfaces that really need, and we don't want to use this dependency to whole object because it creates a lot of problem in the future, usually, especially in huge applications, because we want to know what we really need in our components. What I'm talking about. If we have some description component, yeah, let's imagine we have some component, and we know that this component depends on the card, which is iCard. And in some point of time, we decided to change our iCard interface. Yeah, where it is? I forgot. Card interface. Yeah, and we decided to change. I don't know that now our ID should be number, not string. I don't know. Our guys from backend engineers decided that we need now use ID as a number, not a string. But looking to this component, we don't know what exactly we need to change inside this refactor, okay, inside this fix. We need to open each of these components and check, do you really need this ID or not? And okay, these components works only with title, but to understand this, we need to really read this code of these components. So it's unclear from this side, and our build system doesn't show any errors for us for this. So we want to fix this, and to do so, we need to change our components to be responsible only for data that they really need. So we need to get these properties from props directly without any card relationship to the card. And I would say even more, when, from my perspective, from my experience, when we build UI application, UI elements, UI components, it's better to think in UI way. So what I mean that we shouldn't build components like this example art card. This is even in the name we have object related name, yeah, these descriptions for art. But even for naming convention, it's better to call description with author, for example. It's much better because then you can reuse this component for another type of data. If you wish render some description with author in, for example, for different type, you can do it in future. But when you have even naming art descriptions, it's also create this dependency. Yeah, it's in props and in name, and it's not good architecture as well. So let's do then our next iteration and go to the interface segregation principles component. And let's go from the small components. So here we have now props, which is based on card, but we pick only some concrete fields from this interface. It means that we have some dependency to a card, for example, here in props, for sure. And we need to decide in our, I don't know, architecture layer, what is better for us, because you need to choose. You can build you can copy paste type, or you can build this dependency. I mean, let's imagine our title and image has this type, yes, string and string. And to use this pick, I forgot how to say, TypeScript function, we can reuse this type of these fields directly. And when we change it here, for example, if we decided to use here ID, let's imagine ID, and we can use some ID here. We know that this ID is string. And when we change it here to number, we see that in our all application, in our all components with this dependency, we automatically have these changes. We have type of this props as number. So it's, for me, it's better have this small dependency than copy paste all types, because in other way you need to put here all props directly. Subtitle, title, size, and ID directly, and then you need to have this copy paste of all of these types, and you need to change in all the components when you do so. But I don't like it.
Sorry, Artem, I have a question here.
Yep.
So, you said that you like it's better to keep these dependencies and just to pick subtitle and size. Actually, I disagree with stuff because, for example, one situation, yeah, a subtitle can be subtitle or title. It's string by default in the most of the cases, but in my practice, I sometimes we changed the title to React Node, for example, and this is like HTML element. And if you put an alt image, for example, will be a error because this will be a, in your case, will be a React Node, but not string, and will create a bug. But
Yeah.
if you write the like as you show every time the interface for every component, the TypeScript and ESLint, for example, will notify us that here is not okay. We need to change something. I think, yeah, you understand me?
Yeah, absolutely. And
So what in this case you will do?
You're right, and it's again, your application is, and your architecture is up to you. I added that this one potential solution, and in some small, for example, examples, and in not in small and even medium, I would say, application, it's okay, but it's not for all applications for sure. Because if we want to build pure UI components without dependency to some specific business logic, and this also bad practice to have this dependency. And then you need to really write pure independent components without this. So yeah, I agree with you in some cases.
Yeah, I also agree with you because we'll create like we need to make a segregation, and but yeah, actually we have a problem here, and yeah, I don't know which is best solution. So
Yeah, you need to choose.
this is a real case in my experience, so that's why it's provided.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yep.
Does the big difference between using this kind of this kind of model? Okay, I mean on the 5th line of this file, as per type description props, and then you write equals peak, and in this brackets you write the name of the parameters of the interface that you want to see. But if it's the same, if I will just write the peak like in the classes you have the extend, and when you write interfaces you can extend one interface to another. So if it will be the big difference if I use extend logic, because if when I will use extend and export type export interface and extend another interface, I will have the same changes if I change the ID from string to number or from number to string in the extend in the extending interface.
Okay, sorry. Let's then park this question and discuss it at the end of event. Okay.
Okay. Yes. No problem.
Great. So again, it's up to you how to do this separation. But what this principle about that we need to have this pure readable separate fields for each of our component. So we don't need to put whole object to our component. If we need title to render header, we need to have only title in our props. And this doesn't matter how you do this. The same art description, the same image. And how we can do it in our card, you would say, you would ask. Because now we can somehow put our generics to our component, and it's impossible to do when we work with the pure components in our props. So to do so, we need to work with here with React nodes without any props. And to do this logic, what we could do, we can change our props from component, from pure component to render function. And in this case, we can, this function could return our pure node element. And this pure node element we can use here in JSX. So just small switching between components and render functions can give us this ability. And here, as you can see, we can now use this render function that we don't know exactly what is object here, art, art node or something else, but we know that this object should support iCard interface, and now we can here use our default component in our component. So and now we can build all these components, all these the default components for our get card and use it here as a render function. So just switching the same logic for creation, just switching components to render functions. And here you can see also difference. iCard now get parameter render function render description component, and here we are using our description with concrete parameters: authors, size, subtitle. Questions to this principle and realization?
Beautiful code.
Okay. And the most interesting and important, not the most important, but I think it helps organize, I would say, it in better way our component, because now you can see it looks huge, I would say, yeah, because it's hard to understand this component quickly, and increasing this step by step during all these principles, we decrease maybe the most important one is readability and clear code, and we need somehow improve it. And for that we have the last principles, dependency inversion, which say that we need to we need to cut our huge complex logic to easy, reusable, and effective components. And we need to, we shouldn't be aligned to some concrete realization. So what does it mean in our components way? Here we have example of usage of our components. Yeah, we have card, we have iCard, and inside this component we have logic to load data and logic to show this data. The same for card and for our art card. So and our first also principle single responsibility said that this is two reasons why we want to change it. Because we want change logic, the logic of loading data or logic of render data. And also imagine that we want to load data separately in some bench operation to load all cards and data in one request and then render this data immediately to our application. So it's impossible to do using this component. So what we could do in this case? We need to separate it. We need to have one pure template component to render this data, this template component, and then component to loading and show loading state or template of this component. And this is also could help us because now we have these huge render functions. Why do we have it? Because why do we have this factory to generate our component? Because we need use this hook inside this component. But if we can remove it from it, then it's not necessary to even have this factory. So let's do it. Let's switch to the last branch. I have some changes here. Let's revert it. Let's switch to the last branch. How it's better to show. Okay, I'll show you first of all with the example of usage. So what do we have here? We have here batch cards, some array state with array, which could be iCard and iArt. And here we have some logic to load data and put here inside this array and card and art in one asynchronous operation. And then we want to render it. But this is the one of example. Another example, we want to use the same behavior that we had before. So here, as you can see, we have self-loading cards. And here, absolutely the same logic that we had previously. So we have components, self-loading card, and we put here parameter hook, use card. And just using this parameter, we can build logic to load this data and render it. And also we have self-loading card of the use art hook. But to render it correctly, we also want to provide this render card template with card description, specific card description. And what this card template is pure component to render this card, small card, just template. And using this template, we can easily render this array of preloading cards in one way. Just render card template, and I added this how to say middleware component, any card template, to render separate components. Card template based on the iArt, or card template default component using just card. So how it's possible to do? Let's check these components. Self-loading components. This is pure components, which is get only hook as parameter. And if we wish, we could put here a render template as a custom component, or loading custom component. And what do we do here is just using this hook, show loading component and render template. We don't know nothing about this loading. We don't know nothing about these templates. We just know that we need to use this hook, show loading component, and render it when it will be ready. That's it. So hook is required because we need to know what this card is, and card template and loading components are optional. This is this first one. And the second one, card template, just the same component that we had previously, component with card. Now we can get card as a whole object and render functions to return each of these components. Again, with default values. That's it. So, and now we have pure components, card template, loading, and any card template to render any type of card. We know these components know how this card template works and return it. That's it. So, and now you can see we can easily support both logics. Separate loading inside each of these components, or one big loading and immediate render. That's it. Questions to this step?
Artem, I think on the line 20, yeah, it's if the card will be empty for API, the database will be empty, you will display loading component. You should add additional loading state and to provide here a state but not card. Like loading should be from a use card hook, right? Yeah, I mean use card hook is providing only the card. But if the card will be empty, can be empty, or
while it's empty, we will show loading component. Yeah.
Yes, but for example, in database will be like is not added. It's the new application and.
Yeah, sure. Of course, it's not production code. It's a code to show you how you can render and show and work with your components. I just want explain that it's important to think this way, because of course you need to handle cases, for example, errors there, I don't know, some unpredictable logic. Yeah, sure, but it's easy to build your logics and your components when you know these principles, and when you can know when it's better to apply some of them. Yeah, because even me, when I prepared for this presentation, I checked, I don't know, I found myself that I'm better understood and apply these principles in all my routine works, because just repeating by yourself these pure examples helps you to train your brain, to train your fingers to remember that you can use and how you can easily apply this principle in your really routine work, in your daily jobs. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, I got a small one, not really related to the like the whole point, but I've noticed that you're using this is art check. What is actually, it's like a type check, or what is it? Because
Yeah. This art, it's a small pure function that
Okay.
helps us recognize what type of this object is. Yeah,
Mhm.
because using this iCard, we can now we know that iCard is art when this function returns true.
Yeah,
And
got it.
TypeScript helps us that this iArt, and in this case, this iCard.
Got it, thanks.
Okay, so then that's it. Again, here I highly recommend you who knows Ukrainian, Alexander Sudak, which is has a workshop and in YouTube channel very great examples of these components. This project, and you can check again this code in your site, and this is from my side. Let's discuss questions that you have.
Thank you, Artem. Thank you for the speech. It was very interesting and interactive. And we have a lot of different questions in the chat. I'm not sure that we need to answer them all because we already answered some of them. So maybe you can just check them and answer what do you think you want to answer.
And if you guys want to ask something, please feel
Yeah, you
free.
can also unmute yourself, raise a hand, or write in the chat.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Did- Yeah.
Again, all principles are you shouldn't think that it's possible to apply whole your project by these principles in pure way. It's impossible. And also you need to think carefully about these principles, and you need to know when you should use it and when not. For example, this way of building components this way, it's very useful when you build some library. For example, I don't know, Bootstrap, Material UI, some your internal library for your colleagues, etc. But when you are building projects that is, I don't know, in startup stage, and you need to build quickly, and it's not necessary to maintain it a lot of years ahead, not necessary to do it, really, because you need to think of when you are building these principles in strategic way. When you want to support your code, you and your colleagues, a lot of years ahead, and when you build huge project, or when you build good extended or external library, extended external library, and also it's important to do, but it's not necessary to increase your complexity of these actions just to increase this, I don't know, this readability, this maintainability of the code. Maybe you know that you can build some specific component in some specific case and nobody touch it, I don't know, never. Okay, you can ignore these principles. Any other questions?
So did you check the chat? It is okay? Yeah, we answered everything.
I checked, but again, guys, if you want to ask something, please unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah, Artem, can I ask one question more?
Sure.
Yeah, about the dependency inversion. So as I know and I learn a bit solid, we have low-level components and high-level components, right? And as I understand, the low-level components should not depend of high-level components. So each other should not depend each other. Like,
Okay, what is your question?
yeah, my question, you code which you show, which is the low-level component and high-level component?
Okay, I don't know how to what this terms means, low-level component and high-level component, but I can
Yeah, low-level is like small components which you create, and the high-level components is like parent components. And yeah, you showed that you provide.
for example, this applet mean, yeah?
Yes.
One component and another component.
Yeah, this is a high-level component.
Okay.
I think this is a high level. Yeah, I actually I learning the dependency inversion is a bit it's a bit hard to learn because it's more related to backend, I guess. But I'm not I don't know how to apply on the React application. It's a little bit hard to understand.
Again, about let's then dependency inversion principle. What it means that we need to we need to depend on some abstractions, not of concrete implementation. And in this particular case, we had component with some logic of the loading data.
Yes.
Yeah. And it means that these components depends on the of this logic of loading, and we couldn't change it. We haven't any even variance to change it because we put this logic of loading inside component. Yeah, and it means that this realization of this logic, like inside this components we put, but it means that we create this strict dependency, and we need to cut it. We need to have separate logic of loading, and now our template doesn't know anything about loading. This is pure. I don't know how it's better to call this component in your terms. I haven't heard this, but yeah, in general, yes.
Yeah, okay. I
Yes.
will have a look on the GitHub you provide and I'll analyze better. Thank you for answer.
Yeah, sure. And also, if you're interested in this topic, Alexander will have some workshop soon, so you also could check it. Then, guys, if you haven't any questions, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Artem. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you everyone for joining. So if you missed anything or you want to rewatch anything, so we will post it on YouTube and I'll share with you the link by email. Thank you everyone and have a nice evening. Bye.
Bye.